Mr. Recap here. Today I'm going to explain a comedy drama film, The Little Hours. So let's get started. The story begins with a nun named Fernanda who is leading her donkey through a forest path on her way to the church. When she arrives, another nun, Geneve, approaches her and asks, "Where were you last night?" Fernanda replies, "Like always, my donkey ran away last night, and I spent the whole night looking for it." Geneve responds, "But I always lock the gate properly. How does it escape every night?" As they discuss this, the church gardener, Lure, walks up to them and greets them with a good morning. But both of them scold him and send him away. In the next scene, all the sisters gather in the church for their morning prayers. After the prayer, the superior sister Maria asks Fernanda, "Where were you last night?" Fernanda replies, "My donkey ran away again, so I went to catch it." Hearing this, Sister Maria doesn't say anything. However, the reason behind the donkey running away repeatedly is something we will discover later. Meanwhile, we see Alessandro, who looks sad because she doesn't want to stay in the church. She dreams of going outside and living her life freely. On the other hand, Sister Geneva is having a conversation with Sister Maria when she suddenly notices a book. Inside, she finds a picture describing a strange ritual. She is a little shocked after seeing it, and after reading a few lines, she quickly puts the book back. Meanwhile, Alessandro is talking to her father. He tells her, "I am looking for a good boy for you, but the problem is that every good match demands a huge dowry." Alessandro replies, "If you donate a little less money to the church, we might be able to afford the dowry." But her father disagrees, saying, "That wouldn't be right. Don't worry about it and just focus on your future. Whether you get married or not, what's more important is that you live a good life," her father says. Hearing this, Alessandro feels heartbroken because she believes marriage is the only way to have a happy and fulfilling life. The next day, we see the three sisters together, carrying the clothes they have woven. Alessandro shares her feelings with the other sisters, and they also start feeling sad. Just then, they notice Lurko working nearby, staring at them in a strange way. Seeing this, the three sisters get angry. To vent their frustration, they go inside and start throwing Lurko's belongings. But even after that, their anger doesn't subside, so they end up beating him as well. Meanwhile, we see Father Tommaso from the church. He is heading to the market to sell the clothes the sisters have woven. On the way, Lurko approaches him and says, "Forgive me, Father, but I don't want to work at this church anymore." Father Tommaso tries to calm him down, assuring him that nothing like this will happen again. But Lurko refuses to listen and leaves. After this, we see a house a few miles away from the church, where a landlord named Lord Bruno is having dinner with his wife, Francisca. However, Francisca seems distracted. Her attention is on their servant, Macette, who is also secretly looking at her. It was clear that something was going on between them. Later that night, we see Francisca and Macette lying in bed after their first round of intimacy. Francisca sighs and says, "My husband can never satisfy me. All he cares about is his status and wealth." As they get ready for a second round, they suddenly hear Bruno's footsteps approaching. Panicking, Macette tries to escape by jumping out of the window, but Bruno catches a glimpse of him from behind and chases after him, heading straight to the servants' quarters. Macette, thinking ahead, rushes back and pretends to be asleep before Bruno arrives. Bruno then starts checking each servant, trying to find the one whose heartbeat is racing with fear. When he reaches Macette, he gets suspicious, but since it's dark, he can't see his face clearly. To identify him later, Bruno secretly cuts off a small piece of Macette's hair. As soon as Bruno leaves, Macette wakes up and quickly trims a little bit of hair from all the other servants. The next morning, Bruno lines up all the servants and starts checking their hair one by one. To his frustration, he finds that all of them have slightly trimmed hair, making it impossible to tell who the real culprit is. Still, he realizes that whoever it is, they are very clever. Angry, he warns everyone, "If I ever find out who it was, that man will not live to see another day." As punishment, he orders all the servants to have their heads shaved completely. Later that day, Bruno sits down for lunch with Francisca. Looking straight at her, he warns, "I know what you did. I know you're part of this. If I ever catch that servant, I'll kill him, and you too." But Francisca remains unfazed. Smirking, she replies, "You won't do a thing." Just then, Bruno notices an exchange of glances between Francisca and Macette. That's when he finally realizes Macette is the man he's looking for. The next day, while Macette is working, Francisca approaches him and starts forcing herself on him. But this time, Bruno sees everything from a distance. Enraged, he orders his men, "Capture Macette and bring him to me." Macette sees this and knows he's in trouble. Without wasting a second, he runs for his life. Bruno's men chase after him, but Macette manages to escape through the dense forest. After running far away, he stumbles upon Father Tommaso, who is on his way back from the market. Father Tommaso, slightly drunk after having some wine, loses control of his cart and it topples over. All the clothes he was carrying fall into the river and are swept away by the current. Seeing Father Tommaso in trouble, Masset quickly helps him gather all the clothes from the river. Impressed by his kindness, Father Tommaso asks, "Where is your home?" Masset hesitates before replying, "I have nowhere to go." Hearing this, Father Tommaso takes him to the church and gives him food. Then he warns him, "You must pretend to be deaf and mute here. Otherwise, the sisters will make your life difficult." The next morning, Father Tommaso introduces Masset to Sister Maria. He says, "I've brought a man who is skilled in all kinds of work. He's deaf and mute, so I thought he could replace Lurko." Sister Maria agrees and hires Masset to work at the church. From that day, Masset begins his new job. However, Sister Alessandra and Sister Fernanda are unaware of his arrival. One day, Fernanda sees Masset and assumes he is an intruder. She rushes towards him, brandishing an axe, and demands, "Who are you?" Before Masset can react, Sister Alessandra arrives with Sister Maria. Maria explains, "He is our new gardener, Masset, and he's deaf and mute." Hearing this, Fernanda lowers her axe and lets him go. Later, we see Sister Maria talking to Alessandra. She says, "The clothes you sisters had woven were stolen by robbers when Father Tommaso was taking them to the market. I'm sorry your hard work was wasted." Then she continues, "To prevent this from happening again and to speed up production, we will bring in more workers to help with weaving." Later, Alessandra is seen weaving clothes with an elderly nun named Vaio. During the work, the weaving frame breaks. She takes it to Masset to get it fixed. Unbeknownst to her, Sister Genevieve notices this and secretly follows her. When Alessandra reaches Masset, she says, "Fix this frame for me." Masset begins repairing it while she starts venting her frustrations. "I don't want to stay here. I don't want to do this sewing work. I want to leave and live my own life." Masset listens but remains silent, continuing his act of being deaf and mute. Alessandra, believing he cannot hear or speak, fearlessly pours her heart out. Later that night, Father Tommaso visits Masset's room. He asks, "How was your first day?" The sisters can be quite aggressive. "I know working here won't be easy." Masset replies, "Yes, some of them are really tough, but I'll manage." Father Tommaso reassures him, "Don't worry, they won't harm you. But if anything happens, let me know. And remember, stay deaf and mute in front of them." Masset continues pretending to be deaf and mute so that the sisters don't trouble him too much. Meanwhile, in her room, Fernanda is reading when she hears a tapping sound on her window. When she looks outside, she sees her childhood friend, Marta, waiting for her. Excited, she lets her in, and they both head to Alessandra's room. The three of them sit together, drinking wine and enjoying their time. A little later, Sister Genevieve also joins them, making the atmosphere even more fun. As they drink, their conversation shifts to romance. Marta starts sharing stories about boys and even talks about a special herb that, if used correctly, can attract men. The other three listen intently, laughing and getting curious about Marta's secret. The next day, while Masset is working, Alessandra approaches him with a soft smile. She hands him a handkerchief and says, "I made this for you." Then gently, she wipes the sweat off his face. Sitting close to him, she starts talking. After hearing Marta's romantic talk last night, her mind is filled with similar thoughts. Without hesitation, she suddenly leans in and kisses Masset. Masset, caught in the moment, doesn't resist, and things start to get more intense between them. However, before things can go any further, the church bell rings loudly, snapping Masset back to reality. He quickly pulls away, while Alessandra fixes her dress and rushes off to the church for prayers. During the prayer, Fernanda notices something odd. Alessandra's scarf and nails have dirt on them. This makes her suspicious. Later, while washing clothes, Fernanda sees Alessandra looking extremely happy. Curious, she asks, "Why do you look so cheerful today? And what happened to your clothes?" Alessandra hesitates, but then casually replies, "Oh, I was just helping the new gardener." Genevieve and Fernanda exchange glances. Alessandra never does any work, so why would she suddenly help the gardener? Fernanda, being sharp-minded, senses that Alessandra is hiding something. Later that evening, Fernanda and Marta sneak into the forest in search of the special herb Marta had mentioned. After some time, they find it and bring it back. They boil it, turning it into a strange liquid. Marta then carefully puts a few drops into Fernanda's eyes and makes a small cut on her finger, rubbing a bit of blood on her cheeks. But they don't realize that Genevieve is secretly watching everything from a distance. Not long after, Fernanda and Marta sneak into Masset's room. Fernanda threatens him with a knife, trying to intimidate him. Then both of them attempt to use their charm to attract him. Masset is confused by their actions at first, but soon finds himself losing control. As Fernanda and Marta leave the room, they run into Genevieve. She stares at them suspiciously and asks, "What were you both doing in there?" Fernanda and Marta exchange nervous glances before making up an excuse and walking away. But Genevieve is no fool. She knows something is going on. The next morning, the head bishop arrives at the church for an inspection. Father Tommaso and Sister Maria greet him with respect. Meanwhile, Masset sneaks into Alessandra's room again, and they lose themselves in passion once more. But this time, something unexpected happens. Sister Vaio suddenly walks into the room. At first, neither Macette nor Alessandra notice her, but when Macette turns his head, he is so shocked that he accidentally speaks. Alessandra freezes in place. Macette was supposed to be mute. They both panic, but Alessandra quickly regains her composure and pretends to be helping Vaio, while Macette hurriedly hides under the bed. Their luck saves them. Sister Vaio is deaf, so she doesn't realize anything unusual. Later, Macette quietly escapes through the window without making a sound. The next day, Genevieve notices Macette resting and decides to test the mysterious herb on herself. However, instead of applying it to her eyes, she drinks it directly. At that moment, Alessandra walks in. Fernanda enters the room and asks Macette why he lied about being mute. Before he can respond, they hear Genevieve approaching. Alessandra quickly hides, and Macette pretends to be asleep. Under the influence of the special herb, Genevieve approaches Macette and starts acting strangely, trying to get close to him. But when she hears Fernanda coming, she also hides, only to realize that she's now face-to-face with Alessandra. Both are startled to see each other. Fernanda enters the room, threatening Macette with a knife. She ties his hands and blindfolds him, then drags him toward the forest while intimidating him. Alessandra secretly follows them. By the time they reach the middle of the forest, night has fallen. They see a large fire burning, surrounded by several girls dancing without clothes. Macette is tied up nearby. Shocked, Alessandra whispers, "What are they doing?" Genevieve, still somewhat intoxicated, recalls reading about a dark ritual where some girls gain witch-like powers by sacrificing a human. At this moment, it becomes clear that Fernanda had been coming here under the guise of taking care of the donkey, and now Marta has also joined her. Just as Marta and Fernanda are about to sacrifice Macette, he panics and speaks, pleading for his life. Hearing his voice, they immediately realize that Macette is neither mute nor deaf. Meanwhile, Genevieve, still under the herb's influence, suddenly removes her clothes and starts dancing with the girls. Seeing this, the other girls panic and run away. Marta, furious, starts arguing with Genevieve, asking why she came there. Fernanda is about to kill Macette, but Alessandra arrives just in time, snatching the knife from her hands and saving him. During the chaos, Genevieve and Marta get into a fight, and Genevieve knocks Marta unconscious with a wooden stick. Seizing the opportunity, she puts on Marta's clothes, takes the donkey, and rushes back to the church. Once there, she starts shouting that Fernanda is a witch. Hearing the commotion, Father Bishop and the others come outside. Genevieve insists that Fernanda is involved in dark magic. Moments later, Fernanda, Alessandra, and Macette also arrive. Alessandra defends Fernanda, saying Genevieve is lying because she was intoxicated by the herb and is talking nonsense. But Genevieve retaliates, claiming that Alessandra and Fernanda are both involved and have also been intimate with the gardener. Shocked, Father Bishop calls Sister Maria, but before she can respond, Father Tommaso unexpectedly steps out of Maria's room. Everyone is stunned, and Father Bishop immediately understands what has been going on inside the church. The next day, Father Bishop declares punishments for each of them and asks them to seek forgiveness from God. Father Tommaso receives the harshest punishment for misusing his position. He is sent to a monastery where only men live. Macette is handed back to Lord Bruno, who immediately has him locked up. Meanwhile, the three sisters regret their actions and apologize to each other. Even Genevieve asks Fernanda for forgiveness, but soon they start worrying about Macette, fearing that Lord Bruno might kill him. Determined to save him, they come up with a plan. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Lord Bruno visits Macette and tells him, "I tied my wife to wild animals so she would die a painful death. Now it's your turn, but I won't kill you. I'll keep you alive and make you suffer even more." He then leaves. Desperate, Macette begs the guards to let him go, but they mock him instead. Moments later, a small tortoise carrying a burning candle walks past them. The guards, curious, follow it, unaware that the sisters had set it up as a distraction. As soon as the guards leave, the sisters rush in and free Macette. To deceive everyone, they leave a dummy in his place and dress Macette in nun's clothing. Disguised, they escape into the forest, where they spot Maria leading a donkey toward Tommaso Maria, and Tommaso are overjoyed because they have fallen in love and can no longer stay apart. However, upon hearing some noises, they quickly hide. Just then, Fernanda arrives and spots her donkey, puzzled about how it ended up there. Before she can investigate further, Genevieve quickly distracts her and leads her away. Once they leave, Maria and Tommaso step out of hiding. They realize that the three sisters were behind Macette's escape. Amused by their mischief, they exchange smiles and walk away together. And with that, the story comes to an end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing movie recaps. See you in the next one.